Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, respective radio stations island-wide, Telems, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, and online viewers. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, Grisha Heilige-Martin, to address you. Minister Heilige-Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to the media. Good morning to my fellow colleague ministers. Good morning to those listening and viewing online. As a precautionary measure to prevent price gouging during the 2024 hurricane season, I have established a hurricane maximum price list. But before I go into details, I'd like to acknowledge all those affected by Hurricane Beryl in Grenada, Carriacou, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, Jamaica, and other parts of the region. We know that what a devastation a powerful hurricane can bring, and our prayers are with all our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, and particularly those that have lost loved ones, and encourage them to keep the faith knowing that they are not alone. With regards to the maximum price list, unlike recent years, this pricing will be in effect for the entire hurricane season rather than only when a storm is approaching or during the state of emergency. This will alleviate price gouging across the board. So the hurricane maximum price list will come into effect in the coming days and providing all stakeholders with the opportunity to make the necessary adjustments. It will remain in effect until November 30th, 2024, till the end of the hurricane season. The updated pricing for the 72 items in the basket of goods will also go into effect shortly. This regulates the maximum permitted prices of 72 items, including those in the basket of goods and disaster-related items such as water, batteries, building materials, first aid supplies. I want to assure the public that the Inspectorate of TIAT will be actively checking prices against published hurricane maximum price list and the updated price list for the basket of goods starting next week. More details on how the public can access said lists and report violations will be posted through our media channels in the coming days. As you know, I recently went on a fact-finding mission to St. Kitts and Nevis with a delegation to explore all aspects of agriculture. We gathered a wealth of valuable information. Given the abundance of insights we've gained, I've invited the press and the public to join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. for a debriefing. Myself, along with farmers Mr. Denisio Wyatt and Mr. Erion Neumann, as well as our Senior Policy Advisor from ETT, Mr. Shervin Frederick, will share our experiences and discuss how we can enhance agriculture here in St. Martin based on what we've learned. And lastly, I'd like to end by acknowledging the hard work and dedication of the GB staff. I haven't done that throughout my last couple of weeks, but I want to let them know that these are undoubtedly challenging times, and your commitment under such stressful circumstances is truly, truly commendable. The community's eyes are on you, and I want to express my deepest gratitude for your continued efforts, especially during this man-made disaster. Please don't be discouraged. Brighter days are ahead for you too, St. Martin. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Minister Heilige-Martin, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite members of the media to pose their questions to the Minister. I would like to first start with Bibi Hatshaw of SMA News. You have the floor.
Good morning, Ministers. Minister of an update project, the marketplace project.
Yes, thank you, Bibi, for the question. We are still waiting to meet with the Royal Caribbean Cruise. We're supposed to have a meeting with them this week. Their schedule and my schedule were not in alignment, so we're supposed to still meet with them to go over the budget, all the questions that they've asked, and once they've given us the green light and it's approved, we can start to break ground as soon as maybe next week.
If I may ask another question that is also affiliated with your ministry. Since taken office, can you tell me how many bus and taxi licenses were issued? And if not, will there be any? Because this is the norm during the campaign periods. I'd like to know if you will be issuing or if you did, and if any moratorium have been lifted within the Ministry of TED.
Thank you for that question, Bibi. And I really am grateful for that question because I want to put some things in perspective because I'm hearing a lot of things out there. I'm going to repeat what I mentioned before. Prior to the former administration bringing in so-called cleaning up, it was at 365 taxis. It is now at 521. The buses were at, I think, about 100 and something, and now they're well over 200. I mentioned also in the meeting that I will not be issuing any permits because I'm busy assessing how the process is being done and also assessing what we can do to make sure that this never happens again. Because what we've been able to assess is that they never spoke to the stakeholders. Both markets are saturated. There's also a rumor going around. There's a particular ex-cabinet staff of the former administration out there saying that I will be pulling back permits from people. That I will not be doing either. I am merely assessing the entire situation. I will not be taking food from anyone's table. Let's make that abundantly clear. But I will make sure that the next time that this happens, we will do it in a structural way. This minister who is in a campaign situation right now will not be issuing licenses, which I can, because the cap is at 550 and you have 521. I can do it, but I will not do it. I'm not looking to get votes by giving out or taking away. No, that's not my style. I won't be doing that. I'm merely looking at the policy and making sure that this will never happen again. I've also met with the Taxi Drivers Association. They've asked to increase their tariffs because the inflation is high. Things are tough for them, and they're all scrambling. So that's something too that I will be looking into, working on internally with my team.
Thank you, Minister.
There's a cap right now. Everything is status quo. I'm not touching everything until we have everything in place. And then when I have a full plan of how we're going to create a better policy, a better structural policy, then I'll let you know if I'm going to maintain a cap or a moratorium. We're still busy. I'm not going to just come up with information without details. Like I mentioned before, also the Integrity Chamber is also doing an investigation on this, and Asoa Bay are also doing investigations on this. I need to pull those research, the information from them together, and then come with a good, concise policy further. Okay?
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Bibi. I would now like to invite Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald. You have the floor.
Thank you so very much, and a very good morning to all the ministers present, colleagues. Minister, I do have a clarification and a question, and my clarification is regarding the hurricane maximum price list that you said will be in effect in the coming days. My question is, what measures are in place, or what measures will be put in place, or what will happen to anyone that is found violating the price list once it goes into effect?
Usually from what I've gathered, because I'm completely new to this, they will be fined. But that information will be put out tomorrow. A full press release on the details of that will be put out tomorrow by our cabinet. Not the cabinet, from the policy department.
Thank you for that. And my question, Prime Minister, yes, Minister, you issued a press statement a few days ago in which you indicated that government had requested that the airport make overdue payments to government from the security fees of $1 per passenger, which was established since 2019. What you did not indicate in that press release is how much is owed. So how much exactly do they owe government? And I'm so sorry. And have they responded to your call for that payment? Thank you.
Thank you. First and foremost, let me explain why I went that route. This government right now is forced to cut 32 million guilders. Do you know what that means for this government right now? That means all the projections that was placed from the former government, the former Minister of TIAT, was completely, I wouldn't say, what would I say? It was, what should I say, Minister? A bit ambitious. So we have to cut $32 million. That means guilders. That means every cent counts. The airport came to us, they made a presentation to us, and they asked, can we? It wasn't an official ask, but I stopped it one time because every penny counts for this country right now. It's about 5 million guilders. $5 million, $5 million, yes. $5 million plus, $5 million plus dollars that is owed since 2019. And that is, the Minister of Finance welcomes anything that we can get right now. That's mainly the reason why I asked for that.
Have they responded to your call?
No, nothing as yet.
Thank you, Minister. I would now like to invite Emma Lee of Island 92 Radio. You have the floor.
Minister, thank you. I took note of your statement that you are going to work on forming the Tourism Authority.
Right.
That's something that's been pending for decades. Could you outline what that process looks like in terms of timeline? Is the legal structure in place? Are you going to use what was already in place? Members, financing for the structure. Could you explain a little bit more in detail against the date of election? How does that relate?
Yes. For sure, the cutting, remember we had to cut, that's one thing we haven't cut. Financing is in place. There's also been a legal structure there. What we're in the process of doing now, we're in the process of discussing or negotiating with a particular person. I don't want to give the person's name as yet, to assist us in mainly building the tourism authority. This person, why we chose this person, because, and once we announce him, we will give you full details about him. He was the one that built the Aruba Tourism Authority and the Curacao Tourism Authority. He knows what went wrong, what can be tweaked, and he's the best person to come and maybe customize one for St. Martin. So we're in negotiations with him. We are supposed to have, hopefully, an agreement sometime by next week. And then once that agreement is signed, sealed, and delivered, in the next press briefing, I will come and announce the person's name that's going to be working towards that. That's going to take us 2-3 months of building the structure. We will lean on his expertise to build the Tourism Authority.
So for clarity, you're looking at an incorporation or activation date after elections?
I would love to have this ready by or before the last quarter of the year.
Okay.
At least in time for the new budget, because we're going to have to make sure Budget 2025 can fulfill that Tourism Authority as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. As we do have extensive questions for the
just have-
Minister, I will continue with round 2. Bibi, you have the floor.
Yes. As a follow-up,
Yes.
would this new person be a consultant? Would they be hired? What is it, and what would it cost this bankrupt government?
Well, I just mentioned before that budget I haven't touched, so that budget is there for the Tourism Authority. And yes, this person will be a consultant. Why we chose this person? Because like I stated before, he has the expertise. He built the one from Curacao, he built the one from Aruba. So indeed that. How much it will cost, we're still in negotiations. I can mention all of that as soon as everything is signed, sealed, and delivered.
When I asked you my questions before on moratorium, I didn't mean just the taxi. I asked generally, were there any moratoriums lifted? And what about the issuance of casino license?
I haven't touched any moratoriums.
Okay. Thanks for the clarity.
No problem.
Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I also had one of my questions was also to ask you for an update on the assessment on the bus and taxi licenses, but you did go into a little bit of that based on Bibi's question. So my question would be, when is this whole assessment process expected to be completed?
According to SOAB, they said they would need, I think SOAB told me they would need 6 weeks, and also Integrity Chamber said they would need also, I think both of them stated the same time around the lines of 6 weeks, and I think we're well into 2 weeks now. So let's say in another month, I will hopefully be receiving the reports from them. I will come back with the outcome of those reports.
Thank you, Minister. Emil, you have the floor.
In the statement made today, you mentioned what the marketing budgets for the different destinations were. I think you mentioned that St. Martin's marketing budget was about $2 million.
I said guilders before, but it's dollars, yes.
Okay. So does that include the marketing firms? So how much of that budget is consumed by actual marketing activities versus representation firms? And are there plans to increase it, especially given the budget constraints that government's facing? Because as you mentioned in the article, it is really tiny compared
Of
to
course.
all of our competition.
Compared to the French side, it's 8 million euros, and we're just 2 million. Well, I think we're the only one with a budget that low. I just had that paper in my hand, Emil, for me to go and break. I had it in my hand. So can I email you that information?
Sure.
Is that possible? Because I can give you the full breakdown of where that $2 million is, how it's being allocated.
So are there plans to cut it based on your budget
I have
issues?
tried my utmost not to touch the tourism budget as much as possible. I don't think the Prime Minister of Finance is going to be too happy with me. I'm going to have to shift another way because we cannot touch that meager budget.
And does that include the representation firms' fees?
I haven't touched those
But
at all.
that's in the 2 million?
Yes, yes.
So
yes.
the actual marketing dollars is fairly
Yes, and
small.
that's not touched. Expedia, those, they are not touched at all.
Thank you.
We can't afford to.
Thank you, members of the media. This does bring us to the end of the question and answer session for Minister Heilige Martin.
Thank you.
Minister, thank you so much. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, Veronica Janssen-Webster, to address you. Minister Janssen-Webster, you have the floor.
Good morning, viewers, media, Deputy Prime Minister and colleague ministers. Today, my briefing is very short. I just wanted to mention again the STEP survey that is currently ongoing until the end of April. We are looking to complete as many respondents as possible so that we have a good idea of how healthy is St. Martin. The STEP survey consists of questions, body measurements, and blood testing. So it's very extensive and very thorough. But why is this important? I've had many meetings recently, in the recent weeks, with the White and Yellow Cross, the hospital, Society Medical Center, with the SLS lab, with the Windward Island Medical Association, so the WIMA, which are the GPs, the general practitioners. And what I am hearing is a high incidence of diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, etc. in our community. I want us to all be conscious of that and to monitor, because you see when we do not monitor these non-communicable diseases, the effects of it. There's early blindness, there is becoming dialysis patients, etc. So we have our health in our hands. So I am appealing to the community to monitor to do screening, preventative screening, and to monitor these NCDs and participate in the STEP survey. That's all I have.
Thank you, Minister. I would now like to invite members of the media to pose their questions to Minister Janssen-Webster. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning, Minister. Minister, can you at least, I think by now, since taking office, you have met with the hospital. Can you give us an update on the construction of the new General Hospital and if the project date, the end date, is on target?
The hospital is on target now for end of 2026. What I've been telling people is, when we pass, and I have been guilty of that too, you pass and you see the construction, you don't know what you're seeing and you're wondering what's going on. What we're actually seeing is the basement of the hospital. And the hospital will be quite self-sufficient in the sense that they will have water storage under there in the basement. So that's what we are seeing now. We are seeing the water storage facility. We're also seeing the fuel facility for their generators so that they can be self-sufficient in case of any kind of storm or anything. So what we're also seeing, those big beams, those are actually resistant to earthquakes, and they will be resistant also for heavy winds, for hurricanes. So it's going to be a state-of-the-art steady building that can go through a storm, and it can be, let's say, a place in case of any calamity that our community will have as well. And it's also being built high up from the ground. That's why what we're seeing there, you would think that that would be a ground floor or anything, but that's just the basement. And on top of that, you still have the floor that's coming, so you can see how high it will be above sea level. So, and they are on time. And what I liked personally about the presentation that they gave is that they are paying per action. So when the construction company completes a part, then it's being paid. So it's not like a bulk payment. They are really looking at what they are spending the money on, and they are on target.
Another question I would have relating to the hospital and the time it will take and, the way they're going. I don't know if they have enough workers on site now. Maybe you can tell us about that. But also, are you at all concerned about the funds SZV is spending to send patients overseas? Just recently,
Yes.
SZV announced, they are sounding the alarm about their funds.
Yes.
And if we are continuing to ship people abroad and families and giving daily allowances, this is not helping.
Yes, our healthcare costs, I find our healthcare costs alarming when I look at it. All of the presentations that I have show us that healthcare is, we cannot continue this way. I think it's by 2028, if we continue this way, we will not end up well. And I am focused on that. There are some things that I'm not, let's say, privy to speak about right now, because I like to speak about something when I have it, when, I've signed it. But there are measures that we are taking now, and there are actions that we're taking now to bring down the cost of healthcare. And we do have to send some people away. And now we have to look at how long people go away for. Because if we have quality control in the country that we send the people, sometimes you go to operate your knee, you don't have to stay there for physical therapy, because you have physical therapy on the island, so you can come back. Then we don't have to pay that daily allowance all the time, and we have the quality care here because we have very good people, very good physical therapists here. But it's not only physical therapy, but other medical services that we have here, that we no longer need to have the person stay there because they went for this one specialist. So we want to shorten the time that they're away. And so we're working on that. We're working on various ways to bring down the cost, the medical costs. Also, by having more specialists here in the hospital, and with the new hospital being built, we're going to see where we're going to have more specialists. But we're also doing that with for instance, the White and Yellow Cross. They have submitted now for an expansion, and with their expansion, you will see where you will have lower costs as well, because we know that we have long lines waiting for people to get into the White and Yellow Cross facility for the elderly, the St. Martin home. But maybe some of those people don't need to go to the home if we can offer more home care. So I am now really focusing on the elderly and trying to put some things in place for home care to minimize the amount of people who will need to go to the St. Martin home.
Thank you, Minister. Judy Fitzpatrick.
Thank you so much. Minister, on the issue of SZV, like my colleague said, they did raise the alarm that they are going to be tightening enforcement on payment of premiums, and they did give an indication that this is for the sustainability of its social and health insurance benefits. So this paints a picture as if they're having some sort of financial issue and they need to collect as much as they can. Can you give a little bit more insight into some of the issues being faced by SZV at the moment as it relates to its the various funds and where they're at the moment? And I'd also like to ask, you just mentioned that actions are being taken to bring down the cost of healthcare. I was wondering if you can, I believe you mentioned one, if you can give us some more specifics on what some of those actions are.
So I'll start with the actions. I did write numbers SFV funds. With the actions, what I mentioned just now was we're looking at how we can shorten the stay, still give the quality care, but shorten the stay by putting the quality control. But the other way that I mentioned is with the the White and Yellow Cross, where I mentioned the home care, so that people can stay home longer. So because it costs more when you're physically present there. And the White and Yellow Cross, they offer the home care. So with their expansion, they now do 20 patients for daycare. But with their expansion, they can do more. And if people can just come to daycare, they don't have to stay there. It will bring down the cost. But there are other ways to lower by having people visit their general practitioner, so their house doctor. They will be diagnosed earlier, and then we don't have those large bills at the end if you find out too late that you were sick. So we're encouraging healthier living. Our CPS has those programs with the healthier living, so we're encouraging that. And those ways, by healthier living and preventative screenings, by promoting that, you will bring down the cost of healthcare. But those are just some of the ways. But we are really working on getting more specialists on St. Martin, and that will come with the new hospital. And regarding the SZV funds, yes, like I mentioned, when you look at the way how the amount that we are spending and the amount that's coming in, you do see the numbers don't look good, but there is a large gray economy. We are seeing daily and all the time people who are working on St. Martin, who sometimes they think that they are registered at SZV, and then they find out that their boss didn't register them. So I'm trying to put something together for the community where SZV will be there, our social services will be there, and people will be able to confirm that they are registered. And so we know that businesses are paying into the system. We want everybody paying in.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Judy. Emil, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
After Hurricane Irma, the Ministry of VSA and VROMI worked together to execute the roof repair program.
Yeah.
Is that program complete? Given that we're in an active hurricane season, the roofs that have been repaired, is there any plan from government to ensure that those works are insured so that if there's damage again in the future, that insurance would pay rather than government? And is government prepared to do another roof repair project if there's a subsequent hurricane? And the second question is, can you update us on universal health insurance legislation? Is there any plans to tackle that before elections?
Okay, so regarding the roof repair, there were two different projects for roof repair when I came in. The NRPB roof repair project, that one was closed off. So what we still have is the roof repair project in VSA itself, which is it's not only for roofs, but it's also people, they want just a small kitchen or something done, and from social, we do that. However, that's one of the budgets that was cut with the 32 million that was cut. So we still had some left, but I know that we ended up, when we had to cut the last 10 million, because the first was 22 million, and we had to cut an additional 10 million, the roof repair got cut by 2, so we still have some funds for it. There was some people who had already registered, and so those we want to finalize. And we just started, I think we just started with one last week. So there's not much that we can do. Regarding the insurance, I will take that as a very good suggestion because I don't know if it's being done, but I will check with the department if it's being done. That's something that we can implement. And universal health insurance, general health insurance, that's another project that I understand that the ministry has been working on for 20 years. So I've been in there 2 months and a half. So 20 years versus 2 months and a half, I'm doing my best. I'm reviewing all the documentation. What was remarkable for me in my meeting with the WEMA, the general practitioners, they mentioned that they have not been updated recently on the whole general health insurance. So I don't want that. If I'm not going to come out with something and like enforce it, I want community involvement. So I want a meeting with the WEMA. Every meeting that I go to that I've mentioned there, I ask 2 questions. I asked about White and Yellow Cross, the hospital, the lab, all of them. I ask about general health insurance. What do you think about it? What do you think would be a pro? What do you think would not work? How would you tweak it? When I meet with the unions, I ask them that. So I want community involvement, and with that, I will take that and work on what was there. I believe in continuity of governments. I will work with what is there, but I want the community involved because maybe there's something that we are not seeing. For instance, the White and Yellow Cross mentioned that in Aruba, it didn't go well because the AUV money, which is the healthiest fund, was being tapped into 2 hours, put in one pot. So when I hear that, then I think, okay, so when we are working on it, I want to pull that out. How can I pull that out, etc. So I want the community to be involved. So it's going to take a little bit more time. So no, it's not going to be something that's going to be signed off before elections, but we are on a deadline. Actually, the deadline passed January. The 30th of January was the deadline, and it was not done. It was not done in the months before May when we started, but we have to get cracking on it, and I'm going to continue doing it. I'm not going to, let's say, stop because there's election. I'm going to continue it because it has to continue.
Sorry, you mentioned it. What deadline is that?
There was a deadline for the country packages to have the general health insurance, have the legislation, etc., go to Parliament and all of that. But the reason that hasn't gone as yet is the Social Economic Council that has to be put in place. So there are a lot of things that are being held back because of Social Economic Council. So it's not when people say, oh, you could just go on with it because it's there. No, there are different processes that have to take place that haven't taken place as yet. That are in the works, and as soon as those things, but what I'm doing is trying to work simultaneously with the organizations that have to review it to come to the best possible solution.
Thank you, Minister Janssen Webster, for your opening remarks and the questions. This does bring us to the end of that section for Minister. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice and Acting Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Lyndon Lewis, to address you. Minister Lewis, you have the floor.
Good morning to the viewing public. Good morning to the press. Good morning to my fellow colleagues. Deputy Prime Minister, good morning. This morning, I would just like to address a few points, and I'll open the floor to the press for questions. However, I can say I just returned from the Netherlands where I dealt with the JVA Overleg. It was a success where the 4 ministers of justices come together to make decisions on budgets within the Kingdom of the Netherlands. I've also had conversations also with BZK, I think it's Foreign Affairs, Interior Kingdom Affairs, with regarding to for experts and also based on how you say, I'm thinking in another language right now, sorry, for us to have expertise and different, how you say based on in English, it's not, yes, extra support to strengthen the justice chain. However, I received such information that we also have the marshalls here drying their dome, spinning their thumbs here, and we're not using them. However, with the rise of crime, I have spoken with Chief John. I am also busy with setting up a driehoek overleg with Chief John, my person, and also the Openbare Ministerie in order for us to come with the same line of how we're going to combat the crime rate here in St. Martin. I want to emphasize that the current level of gun violence on the island has my immediate attention. And I would also like to thank the men and women in blue for their hard work and dedication under the circumstances that we are going through at this point in time in our country. To those involved, be aware that you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I am not here to make any type of jokes. I asked the chief to do what is necessary. We sat up to yesterday with regards to the planning, with regards to enforcing the law to the full extent, in order even for us to have based on either from Curacao, especially for the upcoming elections, support here on the island. The increase of gun violence is not only disturbing, but it's a fabric of our economy and our tourist product. So if you're going to mess with the bread and butter of this nation, we have no choice but to deal with you to the full extent of the law. We had different conversations before on the crime fund. I was supposed to get back to the press with the amount on the crime fund. I come back today as I am not email savvy. There's a lot of emails, influx of emails coming in. So I would publicly say that we had a balance at the time of 8 million guilders. Till today, since I did that research, we have a balance today of 4-point-something million guilders. Okay. I have also received a draft legislation that's aimed at improving the supervision and the management of the crime fund. This initiative, developed by a group of local legislators in collaboration with their colleagues from Curacao and Aruba, has led to their certification in legislation. Upon my return from the Netherlands, I also met with officials from the prison, customs, immigration department, and will continue these activities during just this week. It is unreasonable to expect that the neglect of mismanagement of the 4 years can be resolved in just 1 or 2 months. In saying so, I'm going to be very clear, and I'm going to say it again. We are basically, this government has to face a situation where I've also addressed up to this morning with the Director of Immigration, where I have so much pending residence permits for more than a year. I have dedicated my time. I've been asking to expedite also certain documentation for individuals because it also has to do with the progress of our economy, such as, for example, people that are coming here in the hospital to work, people that are working at the airport for the reconstruction, et cetera, et cetera. And also individuals who are, say, from the French side, but have been working on the Dutch side, living on the Dutch side all their life. We cannot send these people anywhere. So to expedite these permits so that the people can have a comfortable living. We also have individuals such as children that needs to be placed in certain schools. Their both parents are documented. And then you're seeing certain documentations are turned down for minors. These type of situations has the attention of the minister. Let's go as forward now as speaking to with regards to the LBAs for the justice workers. When I came in here, this is the first thing that I have dealt with. And I'm going to make it very clear. A lot of people, again, I depend on the civil service to work. My job is to execute. To make it clear, I have over 75. Batch 6 was already signed. When I say signed, I'm talking about the advice. Was signed by my person, did it rounds for the 25 employees, and was also sent up to the governor for him to sign the Landsbesluiten and to be returned to my person to co-sign those documents. Since the 19th of last month, before I left to the Netherlands, I signed that advice. It did it rounds. It is at the governor's cabinet. I learned that the governor is not on the island, and I also asked what's happening with the acting governor. I'm learning that she is not 100. I do not understand what is going on. I do not know what type of games are being played. But till to date, I have not received those 25 Landsbesluiten on batch 6 for signature. However, the employees have already covered batch 7 and 8 for another 50 employees that is also doing its round, that also has to be sent to the governor, and I just have to sit and wait until this is done. My job in getting everything put together, it's walking, and I'm also waiting on those things. Now, I do not know if they're employees. I assume that there's alleged employees that are playing with the lives of the people. If an employee thinks that they're doing me something, they're not doing me anything. they are doing the wrongness that they are doing in delaying the process in these decrees, you are disturbing the peace of the justice workers. And I'm going to speak directly to you this morning to stop. Because all allegations are coming that it is the bidding of the former minister who have put her people in place, as you see, and the people that are put in place who are hired under her administration last minute, this minister did not remove any of them. I'm giving everybody the benefit of the doubt to serve their country and not serve the minister. I will go forward in saying I have had discussions on one-on-one with justice employees regarding their personal situations. As minister, I think it's also very imperative to do so, as it is a political function. Politics, what politics I see today is supposed to be is assisting and helping each and every one that comes in contact with you. This is the type of minister that you have. Even though my schedule starts very rough at 9 o'clock, I also ask any individual, just come to the government building at 8 o'clock, before 8 o'clock, to speak to your minister, to have that 5 minutes to see how I can resolve your issues and your problems. So that's basically what I have today. Also regarding to the students on the side of education, on sports, the students that were supposed to go on, I can't remember the name of the airline that just went Fayit, Jet Air. However, requests were sent in. Council of Ministers had come to a decision where the requests were sent in late. However, as Minister of Sport, I am also seeking other avenues on how we can assist the team on getting on a flight to Curacao. And that's it for me today.
Thank you, Minister Lewis, for your opening remarks. Members of the media, as we are running up on time, we will only have one round for Minister Lewis, starting with Bibi Hacha of SMN News.
Thank you. I just had to watch her. She's still right there in front of my face. Minister Lewis, taking into consideration the uptick in gun violence recently, have you had any discussion with the prosecutor's office as well as the prison management, especially when it comes to UNOPS? There were tons of discussion that the UNOPS were undertaking the reconstruction of the prison, but since you took office, we haven't heard anything. And today we have a situation where prisoners, people that committed certain crimes, are being released because of the lack of jail space. What are you doing about this?
Yes, I did had conversations up to yesterday, like I told you, with the chief of police. I didn't mention I also visited the Point Blanche prison on Sunday. I also visited the Point Blanche prison also yesterday, where I've already had discussions with the management team regarding the capacity of the prison cells. I have also had this conversation as well in the Netherlands. I've also visited a prison in the Netherlands also to see how it is set up. I did get a presentation from UNOPS, and with regards to the capacity, it is what it is. I'm doing an assessment based on the crimes that were committed and who should actually be eligible for early release. That I will have that discussion during this week, as I was also advised by the chief of police day before yesterday for us to have that discussion with the prosecutor himself and my person. That, like I just mentioned in the press briefing, that we can all be on one line moving forward.
Just to follow up, are you considering the utilization of the ankle bracelets with early release?
Well, based on certain recommendations or requests that we also have gotten from other clients, and I say clients, which means the inmates, for early release or ankle bracelets, I am also considering that.
Thank you, Minister. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Minister, can you kindly give us an update on the status of the expansion of the prison facility? Because I believe that is also...
Yes, it's as minister, it can be sometimes very frustrating in the sense where I'm full of energy, okay? And a lot of people might feel that I am pressuring them, but we have no time. UNAP's project is to commence in January 2025. There are continued discussions. There are monies available, such as 2 million guilders was also available. And having discussions in the Netherlands, they say, listen, Minister, your people are moving slow, and there are also people that are hindrance to the process. And sooner or later, we will tell you we want back our money. if nothing is being done, and eventually that the UNOPS program can also be cancelled.
I'm sure you wouldn't let that happen.
No, I won't.
And, so I didn't finish my question, so I will continue. You did indicate that you were engaged in discussions with the chief inspector regarding how to move forward with this very troubling and worrying gun crime violence situation. In the interim, I know that there have been several proposals that were made to the ministry, some of them from some members of parliament regarding pilot programs, legal help desk, community programs, and so forth. Are these things that you are also looking into?
Yes. Yes, and saying so, I can just give you a highlight. And not Chief Inspector, but Chief Commissioner John.
My apologies.
Chief Commissioner John and I sat, and we're, of course, I have the same background as him. He's more experienced than I am. And basically, we sat with the Stratenkist van St. Maarten, the setup of St. Maarten, and where all the concentrated violence and gun crimes, so not only gun crimes, but other armed robberies, violence with a knife, etc., has taken place, where we're going to concentrate on having a special and having team that will be concentrated in those areas. I also decided that we're going to do a multidisciplinary team. So not only that, because we have a gebrek aan personnel, we have a shortage on personnel. So of course, I suggested that we sit with the commander of the Kamar, of the Koninklijke Marechaussees, also with the customs, also with immigration, that we also on the same line with who have what type of authority, so that we can see that the people of this country can see vigilance is in a place. I ask that we work more proactive than reactive. This is something that should have been done before, but however, it was not done. We have the motivation within the organization. My job is to keep the motivation high, and exactly that is why I'm commending my officers for a job well done from all aspects, from the prison, from customs, from immigration, from the police. They're doing a tremendous job. I've also had the privilege to also speak to the management of the Coast Guard as well, which I also requested that we have more we have more alert on the waters, that the people of this country can see, listen, our people are out here doing our utmost best and working for the country.
Thank you, Minister. Emily, you have the floor.
Good morning. We've seen that there's a hurricane that passed through the Caribbean early, very strong hurricane. It is the responsibility of Minister of Justice, I believe, to set the guidelines for campaigning in terms of billboard placements,
Yes.
etc. We've already started to see those materials
Yes.
go up on the roads. What is your approach to ensuring that those campaign materials don't become hazardous in an active hurricane season? And do you have a campaign guideline policy out already?
Well, basically, there is a guideline that is already out. If I'm not mistaken, I already signed it and sent it out. It's supposed to be published, also under the preview of the Council of Ministers. In case of a hurricane situation, everyone already knows that within 2 days prior or short after notice of the hurricane watch, everything is supposed to be removed.
Thank you, Minister Lewis. Thank you, members of the media. That brings us to the end of the question and answer session for Minister Lewis. Judy, you indicated you have a follow-up for Minister, which I will allow after the Deputy Prime Minister has gone. Thank you, Minister Lewis.
You're welcome.
I would now like to invite our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, Patrice Gums Jr., to address you. Deputy Prime Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Members of the press, radio and TV viewers, those online, good day. I will be very brief. From the Ministry of Rummy, the following updates. Regarding the traffic lights at Prince Bernard Bridge, work will commence next week with anticipation of completion by the end of the same week. Included in the installing of new wiring is also the Service Level Agreement, SLA, which has been pending with the Ministry of Rummy for the past 4 years. This SLA allows for the regular maintenance of the control board, which has unfortunately not been kept up to date with the right technology, and as such will be part of the plans going forward in terms of regular maintenance. Speaking of regular maintenance, one of the things that we have also noticed in the ministry is the lack of regular maintenance that has happened. We noticed it particularly with the sinkhole that we have, was recently in the press that it will actually be condemned, as mentioned. But we actually have to look at it from the point of view of how can we ensure and safeguard road safety. And one of the key things for that is the establishment of the road fund. So in the last 2 weeks, my ministry has been busy actually making the road fund initiatives, the beginning of discussions around the road fund. It has been pending for quite a number of years and it has not been addressed. And secondly, with the regards the issues of Cahill, the road work has happened that now allows that the water is no longer a threat. Whatever water is there today, of course, like many other roads in St. Martin, is because lack of drainage that goes part and parcel to our infrastructure projects. And please be aware that that too has been addressed and was first brought to the government on April 16th. So we have addressed it now in the last couple of days. From the Ministry of Rummy as well, very quickly, the Great Bay Channel will be opened today to reduce, of course, the risk of flooding in the Phillipsburg area. As such, swimming in the area of the channel is not advised. From the Ministry of General Affairs, the following updates. St. Martin has recently joined the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CEDEMA. The organization is a regional agency for disaster management and affiliated with CARICOM. The objective of joining is to enhance technical capacity for the country. Secondly, as it relates to the upcoming parliamentary elections, persons are reminded that voting cards can be picked up this week, Monday, July 8th to Friday, July 12th at the government building from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. and this coming Saturday, July 13th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Please remember to walk with your ID. Not everybody knows you. From July 16th, voting cards, uncollected voting cards, will be distributed via the post office. Following this, a new date for collection at the government building will be announced for all remaining uncollected voting cards. Finally, I wish to remind the population of my statements calling for a safe and calm election season. St. Martin has always been a tolerant and respectful place, and we cannot allow hate speech and calls to violence to become part of our political culture. I urge all leaders to condemn such acts and remind all persons that freedom of speech ends where violence and hate begins. I thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Gums. I would now like to invite members of the media, starting with Bibi Hotshaw, to pose your question.
First, Laika, thank you. How many rounds do we have? Because I have, he has 2 ministries and I have a host of questions.
We'll see how far we get, Bibi. You can go ahead.
All right. First of all, as the Minister of Romy, we are in the midst of hurricane season. Just last week, you saw what happened to our Caribbean brothers and sisters with Beryl and flooding whatsoever, on all of the things that came with it. What exactly is being done with the trench cleaning? When is going to start? And can you tell us, give us some update on the court case with the contractor that took government to court? And I'm speaking specifically about a trench cleaning in this case.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Bibi, for the question. Indeed, the trench cleaning has had my attention since coming into the office. I want to set forth the following facts. The trench cleaning was tendered 2 years ago. Upon awarding of the contract, for some reason, we are actually investigating exactly why it wasn't awarded. It just sat there for the past 2 years, 2.5 years actually. And as such, what government has been doing, and by government I mean Ministry of Rummy, we have actually been doing ad hoc trench work. What this means is that basically whenever a request is made for a trenching, government, Ministry of Rummy puts out a request, sends one of the contractors to clean the trenches, and that's what's been happening now for the past 2.5 years. What this means in terms of our budget is that the government is actually spending far more money on trench cleaning than they would if they actually had awarded the contract, as was won, from what we're seeing quite fairly, by the respective company. Regarding the court case, we are dealing with it. We are going to actually call in the different stakeholders to discuss how to move forward, because from what we are seeing, not only is it actually causing a lot of sort of ad hoc actions around cleaning, it also costs the country a lot more money. I would like to remind everyone that while it may seem as if the trench cleaning hasn't commenced, trench cleaning has, of course, been happening. Just last week, I did a tour of a few of the more major trenches. We went through Point Blanche, for example, which has a major trench. That has since been cleaned. The cleaning of the areas around Dutch Quarter have already happened. In some areas, I'd like to point out that why you may see grass in some areas is that to avoid the potential of erosion, the ministry actually does keep some grass in some areas. There's also that some areas also have not had trench maintenance for years. One of them in particular is the trench at Correlator Road, which has now the added challenge of it collapsing into the walls of the trench actually collapsing into the trench itself. So to remove the actual trees would be more detrimental. So we're actually looking now to see how we can continue the original concrete surfacing of the trench that started near the baseball field throughout the length of the entire trench. But in the meantime, it's important to note that we are taking preventative measures. If you go to that trench right now, there's almond trees growing in the trench. If you know, an almond tree takes quite some time to grow. So it's testament to the fact that nothing really has been done sustainably with regards to trenching. But it has my attention, and rest assured that trenching is ongoing. It's ad hoc. It may seem as if it's slow, but again, some areas do need to maintain a certain level of vegetation to avoid erosion, and also to avoid to slow down the water, as well as it may just go much faster through some more built-up areas. Yep.
Thank you, Minister Beebe.
just
Judy, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister, I just wanted to ask regarding the sinkhole. Is there any indication as to what caused this in the first place, and would just filling it with that solve the problem? I mean, this is a main thoroughfare on the island. And I also wanted to ask for an update. I'm not sure if the Prime Minister updated you on this, but if you do have one, I would appreciate an update on the request for assistance from the Netherlands and on the consortium talks. And this is regarding the issue with GEBE. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Regarding the sinkhole, it's important to know that it was in the beginning called a sinkhole. In actuality, it's not a sinkhole. It's the effects of a damaged culvert. So with a sinkhole, essentially what happens is that actually earth material is what's collapsing underneath, and thus the road is being impacted. In this case, it's the collapse of a man-made object, which is a drainage, a culvert. Important to note is why the choice was taken to actually not repair this existing culvert, but to actually just condemn it and fill it, is because the existing culvert actually directs the water over into Indigo Bay. One of the things that we would have had happened is that had this sinkhole, had this culvert been repaired, the water would have been essentially directed to flow over into Indigo Bay. And now that Indigo Bay has been developing into a neighborhood, the sort of diverting the water into that what was once a rural area, undeveloped area, is no longer feasible. In the short term, then, we are condemning the sinkhole, remembering that this culvert has been damaged for some time. The water is naturally flowing down towards the roundabout at the top of the water tanks, so right as you enter Cahill, Kaleja. And the way how the land is set up, that by the time the water gets there, it doesn't have the same amount of strength to cause any damage. So in the short term, we're condemning the sinkhole, and the water will flow and naturally disperse into very non-threatening amounts towards the roundabout. In the long term, the solution is we have to assess the topography, so the way how that curve in the hill is, we have to reinforce it, because we do see some shifting of the hillside in some areas with the road stretching. And also the idea is that we're also going to look at the construction of a new drainage just at the bend of the curve of the road on the hillside. Again, going back to the fact that it's been the very common practice to build roads and not to maintain roads. And this is something that I've been championing to have changed. particularly with the road fund, which has to be established. I got the question actually recently, where are the road taxes going? In government, the money that comes in from road tax goes to a general pot, and it just gets fed out that way. The road fund really has to be established to protect and maintain the roads, because we cannot continue just ad hocly paving roads without maintaining. I recently mentioned a recent press release as well. We are busy. This morning, we signed last week we signed the road resurfacing program. The previous administration started the hard surfacing program, which has made a lot of secondary roads become paved, but doesn't have the necessary drainage. So what's going to happen is that it looks nice for a couple of months, and it sort of is gimmicky and very, attractive for the population, but in the long term, it's not sustainable. So by the end of the year, you're going to start seeing erosion. We've seen erosion in some places already. You're going to see the undermining of the road. So we have to look at more sustainable ways to protect the road. And the culvert, for example, and the collapse of that is a prime example of the lack of maintenance over the years, and as well the lack of the more ad hoc nature of how Rummy has been operating for the last couple of years. Yeah. Sorry, yes, indeed, thank you. A bit in the talks, I will actually state that that discussion is still ongoing. With regards to the generators, we are still on track with our tentative timeline for the arrival of generators. I am in close consultation with the management of GB on this topic. I have made sure that I sort of have regular conversations daily if necessary, because I think one of the key things that has been the challenge is communication. I think a lot of misinformation, a lot of distrust is there, and I think in the past week, in this capacity as Deputy Prime Minister, one of my key attempts has been to bridge the gap between the company and the government, because it doesn't serve anybody if we're not in communication to solve this problem. Yeah.
Thank you. Emily, you have the final question.
Good morning. Thank you. My question is related to GB as well. Are you, as Minister, comfortable and in agreement with the way the tender process for the rental of the generators was executed by GEBE? Which companies were selected? There's a short-term and mid-term solution for providing those generators. Can you provide the names of those companies? And can you update us on the crankshaft issue?
Okay. With regards to the tender process that happened, I will say that the tendering process, and correct me if I'm wrong, ministers, because during that time I was not officially a part of COM, the tendering process actually happened directly without the consultation of the Council Ministers for the generators. Indeed, without the Council Ministers being involved, my personal feelings around the process, if it did come to government, would have gone most naturally to COM, so that would have been a more unified decision. So I can't necessarily speak of my personal opinion from decisions that would have been taken by government as a whole. And in terms of the crankshaft, I will give you an update, if possible, in writing on that for you. I think you had one more question I might have missed.
So are you...
Oh, the companies. Yes, indeed, that I can share.
I'm sorry?
That I'm unable to share.
You're unable?
Yes.
Yeah.
And are you comfortable with the tender process that GB executed? Are you supportive, comfortable, in agreement with the way that tender process was executed?
So essentially, we have no insight into the tender process, and I think these are one of the things that we have brought forward in discussions, in so much as to say, there's been a lot of discussions around the role of government and how far government can go into the insights of a government-owned company. And I think, we're very strong proponents of good corporate governance, but I think in times of crisis, we do have to look at how far that extent of that sort of separation happens for the fact that these are government-owned companies.
Can you explain why you're unable to share the names of the companies supplying the generators? Indeed,
because from what we understood, there is a NDA between between the company and the companies, so to speak, who have put forward. Like in most bidding processes, you're not necessarily allowed to know how the process went and who all applied. What you can know in the end is who got it, but that's an NDA between GEBE and the relevant company.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Gums. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session for all ministers. However, any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, July 10, 2024. For rebroadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Telemcell TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Roleka Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.